This is Harlem, a place almost everybody has heard of, but where most outsiders have never been. Every urban problem that plagues this country is represented here, and you can find it all within a few blocks of this rooftop. Broken families, rampant street crime, the worst housing this side of Calcutta, alcoholism, street gangs, and the worst plague of all, drug addiction. At first, this segment was intended simply as an investigation of the heroin epidemic. The poppies are growing again in Turkey, and I wanted to see if the Turkish main line had been reconnected. But Harlem, even the pits of Harlem, is a story so much larger than just...
doing whatever I had to do to survive. I'm not saying what I did was all right. Trying to break out of the ghetto was a day-to-day fight.
Biggest drug dealer in New York.
And down so low, getting up no cause for mine. I knew there was a better way of life, and I was just trying to find.
I guess I was best describing you. It was while Barnes was in prison that he suspected that the two main women in his life were sleeping.
Trying to catch a woman that's weak. Across 110th Street, pushes won't let the junkie go free. Across 110th Street, woman trying to catch a trick on the street. Across 110th Street, you can find it all in the street.
New Harlem prospered. The Dutch brought in slaves to build homes, and the slaves carved out a long road toward Lower Manhattan. The road was eventually called Broadway. Harlem, in America's War of Independence, caused General George Washington to write in a dispatch to Congress, "We are encamped on the heights of Harlem, where I hope our troops behave with tolerable bravery and show themselves to be worthy of the blessings of freedom, though experience has shown me that this is generally too much to ask of them." Hamilton Grange was another. By the beginning of the 1800s, a new class of downtown merchants and businessmen had moved uptown to live. Many of them traveled between their homes and offices by boat on the Harlem and East Rivers. Up before the turn of the century, Upper Fifth Avenue looked like this. And Upper Park Avenue like this.
I remember Harlem in 1882. Father was a lawyer and took me ill to get his office at 31 Liberty Street. And I was born at this Harlem address, 231 East West 132nd Street. When we left Harlem, I was only 5.5 years old. And the tricks that I used to see my older brothers and the youngsters in the neighborhood do, one was to tie a light cord from the lamppost to the house, and policemen wore the high hats at the time, and as the police would walk over, you could knock his helmet off. As I recall, for the 5.5 years that I lived in Harlem, I didn't see a colored boy.
Not not many colored boys lived in Harlem at this time. Until the turn of the century, Black New York was located further south on Manhattan's west side, in districts like San Juan Hill, where New York City's Lincoln Center complex now stands. The 369s were kept out. And the Hell's Kitchen district, site of today's Port Authority terminal. This part of San Juan Hill is at 59th Street, looking east toward Columbus Circle, around 1900.
I remember well living in Hell's Kitchen, although I went there as a youngster, but I was easily 14 years old before I moved up to Harlem. But Hell's Kitchen was a section which stretched from about 37th Street up to 51st or 52nd Street, and from 8th Avenue west over to 11th and 12th Avenue. The street we lived in was 41st Street, and between 9th and 10th Avenue. This section of Hell's Kitchen got its name because every Saturday night it seemed like all hell would break loose between the families of different ethnic origin for one reason or another. They seemed like they could get along pretty near every other day until Saturday night when, for one reason or other, the police would have to run the paddy wagon up and down the street all hours of the day and night. If you wanted to walk down 8th Avenue or 9th Avenue, past 40th, 39th, and 38th Street, you had to watch out for a fight on your hands. Same way, when you get to 37th Street, the white man had a fight on his hands. The biggest race riot started right on 8th Avenue and 41st Street, which is just a block away from where our part of Hell's Kitchen was. And that all started because a detective suspected a woman was standing on the corner soliciting, but instead she was standing there waiting for her husband to get off the trolley car to coming home from work. And he got off the car just in time to see this detective grab her. And that started the fight. The fight ended up in a riot. And the riot lasted for 3 days, the biggest in New York.
I suppose we're liberal in my ear as a black man. A white liberal is immediately suspect because it is indistinguishable, and one has got to face this. You might as well say a white missionary, because that's the association. And it is also, alas, very often, not always, but very, very often, the role and the effect. But deeper than that, more important than that, there's also this. That from a historical point of view, no matter how miserable my situation is, from an historical point of view, at this hour of the world's history, I have an advantage over you because I'm compelled, I'm speaking about myself as a black man, I'm compelled to doubt my history, to examine it. I'm compelled to try to create it. I'm trying to excavate my history from all the rubble that has buried it for so many hundreds of years. And that means that I have to question everything. Whereas the white liberal is in precisely the opposite position of being, in the main, unwilling, as well as unable, to examine the forces which have brought him to where he is, which have created him, in fact, to make, which must be very difficult, that to know, that quite apart from whatever his own attitudes, aspirations, morality, whatever they may be.
The first drawing of draft numbers occurred in New York City in July of 1863, less than 2 weeks after the bloody Union victory at the Battle of Gettysburg, in a city that was seething with tensions over class and race. The first drawing of 1,200 names on July 11th went peaceably enough, but the city seethed over the next day, and the powder keg erupted when the second drawing of names began on Monday the 13th at the U.S. Provost Marshal's enrollment office at 3rd Avenue and 47th Street. A rowdy crowd gathered, and as more names started to be drawn, suddenly a gunshot rang out. As if on cue, the crowd erupted, attacking the office with paving stones and trying to storm the building to destroy the enrollment documents, setting the building on fire. When the volunteer fire departments tried to fight the fires, the rioters attacked them and destroyed their equipment. Other rioters attacked streetcars, killing the horses and breaking up the cars, while still more tore down the telegraph lines to prevent communication to the rest of the city. As the rioting spread, the Metropolitan Police Department tried to quell the violence, but the force was outnumbered, and the New York State Militia had been sent to the Great Battle at Gettysburg, leaving the city virtually undefended. When Police Superintendent John Kennedy arrived to assess the situation, the crowd attacked and brutally beat him. While they were unable to quell the riots, the police had some success containing them. When a mob attacked the offices of the New York Tribune, a prominent Republican and abolitionist newspaper, with the intent of hanging editor Horace Greeley, a group of nearly 100 officers attacked the mob from the rear, causing them to clear the building. The staff of the New York Times turned back the mob themselves by manning Gatling guns. The mob targeted homes of draft supporters, well-known Republicans, and the wealthy on Fifth Avenue, looting as they went. They set fire to the 8th and 5th District police stations. The largely Irish Catholic rioters targeted Protestant charities, such as the Magdalene Asylum and the Five Points Mission. When the proprietors of the Bull's Head Hotel on 44th Street refused to serve the mob alcohol, they burned the hotel to the ground. The mob brutally targeted black people, seeking, it seems, to eradicate them from the labor force. They especially targeted black workers near the docks, where they had been seen as the biggest threat to labor. Black men were beaten, stabbed, and lynched in the streets, their bodies mutilated. Businesses that served black patrons were burned. The crowd burned the pharmacy owned by James McCune Smith on West Broadway, thought to be the first pharmacy owned by a black man in America. The mob targeted the Colored Orphan Asylum on Fifth Avenue between 43rd and 45th Streets, a symbol of white charity towards blacks and black upward mobility. The police and staff were able to evacuate the 220 children, but the mob looted and burned the building and savagely beat a white Irishman who tried to intervene on behalf of the children. The mob continued looting and burning through the next day, but by Wednesday, troops, hastily sent to Pennsylvania, started to arrive. By Thursday, thousands of federal troops were in the city. The mob and militia continued to skirmish, but the troops had the upper hand. A final confrontation on the night of the 16th killed a dozen people. In all, about 120 people were killed in the New York City.
For peace, no one is willing. Kinda make you get that feeling. Everybody smart. Use the pill and the dope. Educated fools from uneducated schools. Pimping people is the rule.
From 18th Precinct, the mob have attacked the Armory, 2nd Avenue, 21st Street. There is danger of firing the building. All 300 police wounded or unaccounted for. Find the military. From 20th, then 100 men dispersed mob assailing Mayor Updike's house. Building corner 33rd Street, 2nd Avenue, the moratorium on the mob. Barnum's American Museum on fire. Animals are escaping.
There can be no show. And it was hell below. We're all gonna go. Everybody praying. And everybody
Gunboat
saying.
Liberty. Ironclad Crusade now lying off the foot of Wall Street. They are ready to open fire on the mob. Mob now going down 5th Avenue to attack the Tribune office. From 16th, mob is coming down the station. We have no men. The mob is very 16th. 7th Regiment is Harlem Bridge is to be torched.
The rats have taken over the city.
From 21st, there's an attack on the colored people in 2nd Avenue. There's a mob headed for the Colored Orphans Asylum. Send troops to protect the children. Is now on 7th Avenue, 28th Street. They have just killed a Negro.
There's a nigger. Get him! Get him!
Sir, the Major General wants to know what to do with any prisoners.